Forbidden Forest creeped its way onto the Commodore 64 screens in 1983, part of the big first wave of C64 releases before anyone really knew the capabilities of the system. It stood head and shoulders above other releases in most respects. Released by Cosmi and made completely by one person, Paul Norman, his first ever programming and video game release. It was something quite different, that's for sure. The story is pretty vague, with your character having taken a wrong turn and found himself lost in a deadly forest, as early evening slowly makes its way to night. You have a bow and arrows as defense as the creatures of this supernatural forest descend on you. This may not be the first video game with horror elements, but it is definitely the first true game of the genre, mixing visuals, intensity, and sound into a truly creepy experience like no other at the time. Paul Norman, the man responsible for this experience, had no background in games or even programming. He learned everything from a 6502 machine code book at Cosmi, and drew on his first loves of cinema and music to make the Forbidden Forest come alive. Here's Paul on his unique programming style. Because it was my first game and my first programming exercise, I had no rules to follow, and there were no inhibitions. As always, I treated myself as the audience and did whatever I could to excite and surprise myself. One technique was to write complete action sections with lots of random variables, without checking each step along the way. I would then run it to experience the whole scene as a viewer instead of a creator. Naturally, things didn't work a lot of the time, but when they mostly did, that was as close as I could get to an outside perspective.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Cloner Alliance is a fantastic affordable video capture device that can be linked directly to your PC and can be used as a completely independent system for all types of video capture. It's an excellent solution for VCR, DVD, and retro gaming recordings, coming with all the necessary connections you need. You can record both analog and digital straight to a USB drive with a simple click of a remote button, plus instant video playback as well. Great for not only retro games, but modern systems with multiple resolution, 60 frames per second capture, PAL and NTSC compatible, very simple and easy setup with some straightforward user instructions, plus bonus extra downloadable software free of charge. This device is available now on Amazon and their website. All links to the system are in the video description, and I thank them for this sponsorship. You initially get multiple choices of difficulty levels, mostly ramping up the amount of monsters that need to be killed to go to the next level. The game is made up of 7 stages in total, or face-offs, as the game is a mixture of run-and-gun stylings and one-on-one boss showdowns. It doesn't really 100% fit into any genre gameplay-wise, as Paul himself wasn't a gamer, so inadvertently didn't really copy any particular style or gameplay mechanic. The goal is to simply escape the forest and kill the ultimate demon leader at the end, the Demogorgon. Each level is as stressful as the previous, whether taking on hordes of spiders or constant skeleton attacks, or the slower, more atmospheric face-offs against a single enemy as it hunts you down. You only have 40 arrows, so every shot has to count. If you manage to survive a level though, they do replenish. Paul never set out to make a horror game either. Here's him on the initial idea. Conceptually, the game is all about my love of movies. My taste is all over the place. My favorite is Dr. Strangelove, but I also like the greatest story ever told. I had to choose something action-friendly, so I went with the Ray Harryhausen kind of genre. I was starting with a guy with a bow and arrow, and where else are you gonna put him but in the woods, right? Graphically, Forest is both impressive for 1983 and rough around the edges, mostly due to it being Paul's first game, and people like I mentioned earlier not really knowing the full capabilities of the system at hand. But that doesn't stop Forest from having a true 8-bit cinematic feel. Each level's creatures are unique in patterns and behaviors, as giant frogs rain down on you, a red dragon stalks you from the sky, and that Demogorgon face-off with the music dropping out completely, leaving just the lightning sounds and flashes of light to reveal his location. It sent pure chills down my spine. Like an 80s slasher movie, it is overloaded with gore and violence. That was really quite shocking back then. Every death animation is also unique to the level, and the combination of the graphics and intense sound effects made you feel every single death. It wasn't merely a matter of a laugh icon disappearing out of the corner of the screen. It truly felt like your laugh was at stake. Adding to this a very impressive atmospheric day to night cycle as the moon slowly rises higher in the sky behind you as each level progresses. It gets darker into the night until the ultimate midnight face-off, plus a very impressive parallax scrolling effect, which had only really started being used in arcades at that time. Here's Paul on the technicality of that effect. I knew it was side-scrolling, as all games were back then, so I thought, if I make the smaller trees scroll at a slightly different rate, and hey, you've got parallax. I had no idea this wasn't standard practice. The guys in the office walked past and said, wow, that's state of the art, man. It was news to me, but I'll take it.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
The music and sound effects in Forest are truly the icing on the cake, syncing so well with the on-screen visuals. It truly gave the game an epic cinematic feel, losing that very cutesy vibe of most games of the era and embracing its dark undertones. With every single note and cue of the murder animation sound effects, the opening track makes you feel like you're falling down an endless rabbit hole to your doom, and that haunting track as the dragon stalks you is forever burnt into my mind. Playing this game late into the night by myself circa 1984, it totally creeped me out all the way. Yes, Paul on the vibes of the music. How does music come about? Music is the sound of emotion. As a musician, you keep mixing and matching the final notes and chords available until they make you feel something. Also, your reaction, is a composite of the whole experience when you first heard the music. So even when you hear it by itself later, your brain is recreating the entire event emotionally. This game's style cannot be fully experienced without playing it. Even now, every level and section feels like a small cinematic experience played out with maximum intensity. There was a sequel in 1985, Beyond the Forbidden Forest, although not quite as good as this one. It's another excellent rabbit hole to dive down for 8-bit horror. Forest, with its simple but versatile gameplay, excellent enemy designs, unique, slower paced sequences, and one of the most intense final boss face-offs, truly make it a legend of the horror gaming genre, and the grandfather of them all in my opinion. But I'll leave Paul to give the final words about this game. When you get to the final demon, to be completely honest, it's not much of a visual, so the lightning and the flashing is all to its advantage. That's true of many horror films. You hardly see the alien because it looks better in bits and pieces. If I'd been totally immersed in the video game thing, I would have made Forbidden Forest sillier, all about speed and reactions, but that wasn't my background. I wanted to make it as much like a movie as I could, and all the cliches that come with that.